less than 1% of all small businesses in America ever get to 7 figures. And less than 0.01% get to 8 figures. And then when it comes to 9 figures, it's like 0.00001%. That's small business. That's not even just talking about law firms. That's like all small businesses in America. I'm Michael Mogill, founder and CEO of Crisp, the nation's #1 law firm growth company. I've built my business through practice, not theory. Crisp started with just $500 to my name and has grown to over 8 figures in revenue over the last few years, earning a spot on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing private companies in America. Our approach has been to take everything we've learned about generating massive growth within our own organization and help the country's most ambitious and committed law firm owners do the same for theirs. In each episode of this podcast, I sit down with innovative market leaders from the legal industry and beyond to learn from those who thrive in the face of adversity, challenge the status quo, and define what it means to be a true game changer. This special edition episode features my conversation with Dreyer on the Personal Injury Mastermind Podcast. We discussed how to hire leaders and build infrastructure that frees you up, the role of intentional discomfort in breaking through growth plateaus, and why brand equity outperforms lead gen over the long term. You ask any law firm in America, you say, hey, who do your best cases come from? And they'll say referral and word of mouth, right? And it's like, okay, well, how does that happen, right? And it's because you have built a brand. That's coming up on the Game Changing Attorney Podcast. Before we begin today's episode, I want to remind you that we aren't beholden to any sponsors or run any ads on this podcast. This allows us to present all of our episodes raw and unfiltered. I'm not going to push any made-to-order meal services on you or try to save you any money on your car insurance. That being said, I have one small request. If you receive any value from this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. Pay the fee so we can keep this podcast free.
I'm here with my guy, Michael Mogill again. Mike, welcome back to the show.
Grateful to be here, Chris.
I want to talk about something. I want to give you some massive props right out of the gate to kick things off. But you recently hit your vision of helping 1,000 firms grow by $1 million each. What did it feel like to hit that mark? Tell me you didn't just immediately move the goal the flag post. Tell me about it.
Yeah, well, it's actually interesting. So we hit it in November of last year. We exceeded. We hit 1,107 firms, but it was, I'll tell you, probably at the start of that year or maybe the end of 2023, I was already thinking about the next one because you could kind of see the writing on the wall. Like you have enough data, you see how it's pacing, you see how it's projecting, and you're like, okay, this is going to happen probably in the next year, maybe year and a half. So we already had the next one lined up. So when we set the vision back in 2018 of helping 1,000 law firms grow their revenues by $1 million each, like this was like, where do we even begin, right? Like we weren't working with 1,000 firms, like helping them grow their revenues by $1 million each, and the whole reason for that was just if a firm at the time, at least in 2018, could scale by $1 million or more, you have more infrastructure in place, you have systems, you have a team, like the impact, the number of clients you can serve is exponentially greater. And we felt that was a worthwhile vision to pursue. And then as you fast forward to, I think, 2023, we were close. We were at over like 900 at that point. And the inflation had hit and $1 million wasn't, what it used to be back in 2018. And I was like, look, what's $1 million, right? Like you can't, that's not retirement and you're done forever, right? And especially $1 million in a law firm. So I was like, look, we got to think of a bigger vision. I think the best visions are ones that, one, you can quantify, and then two, that are infinite in a sense. Because people would always ask me, like, what happens when you hit this 5-year vision? And I'd say, well, we would just make it bigger. So that was the idea behind 10,000 law firms, 10 million each. So instead of $1 billion annual impact, it became $100 billion annual impact. In the legal industry as a whole is, I think, 370, maybe 380 billion. So now it's crazy because the same excitement I had in 2018, I now have today of saying, I don't even know where to start. Like, how do we even make a dent in this? And it's like eating an elephant, right? One bite at a time.
I think that's incredible. And it makes you think differently when you set those types of goals versus the small goals. We go around, we set our annual planning, and it's like, we're going to hit this revenue target. I'm like, well, what would it look like if we hit this other target? Get people out of their comfort zone. Also, one of my problems with EOS, and I don't know if you guys are on EOS, is the rocks. It's they're kind of loosey-goosey versus like OKRs and objective data. Like they tell you to do that, but I think that's one of the issues I have with that. So I love the objective component of that goal too.
It's like what is it? Like SMART goals. Like my problem is SMART goals. What's the A is was it attainable? Is that what it is?
Yep.
And I always think, well, that's interesting, right? Because and this goes back to whether goal setting, vision setting, setting targets. I'm just of the belief that when you set a target, if you already know how to get there, then it's not very exciting, right? It's just, to me, it's just only a matter of time versus setting some sort of target that gets everybody excited that now you have to create a different system, a different framework. You have to think differently. Like, because if you already know how you're going to get there, it's usually like goals where you say, okay, I'm going to grow by 5% or 10%. And then people just equate that with, we're going to work longer and we're going to work harder. But if you say, okay, 5X or something crazy, like, 10X, 20X, then you can't just work your way to it, right? It's not just, we're going to work harder. We have to reimagine how the entire business operates.
And you know how it is. Like if someone sets a 5% goal, it's like probably are not growing or they went behind too, if they're not pushing themselves. Outside of that, and that's an amazing milestone. I love the new BHAG. Give me some other highlights. Tell me about some exciting wins, milestones, campaign results, or just personal wins too. I'd love to hear that.
Oh man, where I begin? So my first win I thought is my daughter, like the youngest, just turned 4. Spending a lot of family time. We've got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. I'd say those are like the biggest wins. Then, as far as like business wins, this is a really exciting time. I mean, you and I talked about this when you came on our podcast. Of this is going to sound sick and twisted, right? And I mean this in all the right ways, but people can interpret this however they like. When 2020 hit and COVID was taking place, like I know, like we all thought like the world is upside down. What are we going to do? A very tumultuous time, and I was never more excited and more engaged. Right? It's just it's like I thrive in war times. And now you fast forward and you've got the whole like ABS, private equity, non-lawyer firm ownership. You've got AI, disrupting just various fields and professions and the impact that's making on legal. And for a lot of people, it's a scary time. But there's also, I think for a lot of other people, it's also a time where it's very exciting. And for a lot of firm owners, it's like, do you ignore this stuff or do you leverage it? Because there's productivity leaps, there's leaps in just capabilities and impact and just how a firm can grow and scale. So to me, that's really exciting. That's where a lot of our conversations are right now in terms of law firms scaling, whether it's taking private equity money or even acquiring other practices or leveraging tech within their firm and how they're leveraging AI, for example, to give each of their team members almost like an AI assistant in many ways. I think that's a big win. Last year, we closed out that year. That was the Vision hit year. And we had our conference, interviewed Nick Saban in a fireside chat. So we closed out with a performance by Ludacris. So it's kind of a fun end to that year. And really the big change, I would say this, is that I shared this briefly at the conference, was we'd gotten the business to be really a self-managing team probably about 2 years ago. And I had a health scare at the end of 2022. This was after that Mercedes-Benz stadium event. And that probably took years off my life of like, who does an event in a football stadium? Chris, if you did this, I would be
talked about this.
I would root for you. I'd be your biggest advocate, but I would not wish this upon my worst enemy.
We've talked about this before, and in private conversations, like doing an event is hard because those tickets seem to come in at the very end, no matter how much of Facebook ads. I mean, you'll get a trickle, right? But they come in at the end, no matter scarcity and different tactics, and yeah, so it's a stressful time.
No one's asking for another legal conference. No one. So anyway, so after that, I basically like team self-managing. We got great leaders in place. I go all in on the health focus, like health, longevity, et cetera. Like I become the Brian Johnson, right? Essentially like just saunas, cold plunges, like nutritionist diet, just because I saw the writing on the wall. Like I knew a lot of entrepreneurs that were suffering like heart attacks, strokes, or, or may not even be with us today. And I was searching, okay, what's the next thing? I mean, I was working on the second book, obviously still dropping in at Chris. We do workshops, that sort of thing. And after about a year of that, man, I got so bored that I came back and we just, essentially was like, all right, I'm back. Let's scale this thing. Let's blow up the vision. Let's make it even greater. So that happened, I think, in the middle of last year, and I believe in June, and I've been back ever since. So it's been Superman Returns in some ways. I had this conversation the other day with an entrepreneur of like, we work hard many times, work hard now, so that you don't have to work hard later, right? Meaning that like you put in all the blood, sweat, and tears while you're building for the idea that there's a payoff later on. And then you get to later and you're comfortable, right? Like you've solved a lot of problems, you have a great team. So what keeps you going then? And what does it take to go from like having hit whatever that milestone or reach the top of that mountain to then go back to the very bottom and want to put yourself through everything like that you had to go through, probably even worse, and do it again, right? Like you got to be absolutely sick and twisted.
Yeah, it's psychopaths, right? I think
100%.
either you send it to me or I send it to you.
Oh, yeah.
Brady getting interviewed by Logan Paul, right?
Yeah.
He's like he's a psychopath. Like every day he's just coming in to compete. And like, I think you love to compete. I love to compete. It's fun. Like we get purpose out of it. You know, the Viktor Frankl, that book, everybody reads it and it's kind of doing that introspective. And for me, it's like, I get purpose out of competing, and how I compete currently is like in business.
Yes. Mark Cuban wrote this book. I forgot the name of it. It was like the first book that he wrote where it was like something around like this, like, well, the sport of business is like and he talks about that, like, look, athletes have off seasons, but business owners don't. And then also in like professional sports, there's like an expiration date. It's like how long can you actually stay on the field? Like you can't be 80 years old, playing professional football. But when you're running a business, it doesn't matter how tall you are. It doesn't matter how athletically gifted you are. Like you can like play this game for a very long time at a very high level. And it's also the most brutal game because it's 24/7, 365.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And the other challenge, actually, I'm thinking about this more. The other challenge is, I share this with our team a lot when, I want to put them in the shoes of a law firm owner, like who goes to law school, graduates, and then let's say works under the law firm and says, I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to start my own firm. And I say, okay, imagine this. Imagine you decide to do that one day. And on the day that you decide to start your law firm, you don't start like a video game competing against level one. You're competing against people that have been doing it for 20, 30 years, that have way more resource than you, that just know what they're doing, have amazing teams, are investing millions in marketing. And you got to compete with that on day one. Like, it's not like you're just competing against other people that just started their law firm. You're competing against the best and the brightest and the most talented. And imagine you don't know anything. Like, you don't know how to hire people. You don't know how to train people. You don't know how to do operations. You don't know intake. You don't know how to acquire cases. It's just you. So what happens is you work 100 hours a week and you're stressed the hell out. And then you say, like, is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Then you say, I need help, and you hire somebody. And then the person that you hire, typically they don't work out, either because you hired the wrong person or you didn't, you don't know how to train them and develop them. So then you get discouraged. It's just a tough place to be.
Yeah.
Get out of that.
I think like even if you had the knowledge, there's challenges, right, with consolidations, with the capital from a leverage perspective. And I think that's part of the appeal of mass torts, right? Oh, there's this new mass tort, just started. Let me get in. Like, I got the knowledge, but now I'm kind of at the same starting point versus like you going after auto or DUI or divorce. It's like, it's tough. So you got to think differently. You brought up, we've had some conversations ourselves about, professional services, right? Like even what we do, like a lot of times people don't associate that, but it's professional services. You've helped firms scale across, major revenue thresholds. I saw, the impact. I see I'm getting blasted by your Facebook ads on Shannara talking about the impact, the crisp coach. Let's break down some of these inflection points, when firms are moving at the different levels. Like when you see a firm say, Michael, I don't even know, like six figures to me, like to me, that's like you're still working for somebody else or like maybe you're, I don't know, like you're really struggling, like you're not in the game. I guess I'm going to jump right immediately to set, like, you said it yourself, like the times have changed with the inflation. When you're at the very bottom, like $1 million, what's it take to go from $1 million to $8 million? Like, what do you see for law firms?
Yeah, so I think about it from the standpoint of like, why do firms plateau, right? Like what prevents a firm from going from like one level to the next level, right? So you mentioned like 7 figures, right? So the average law firm in America, makes $140,000 a year, like gross revenue.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Like that's just wild to me, right? That's pre-tax. That is just gross revenue. And you think, okay, so why, like, what prevents a firm from going from 6 figures to 7 figures? Because most firms are under 7 figures, like the majority.
Okay,
right?
Okay.
And right there, it's just chaos, right? It's the example I was mentioning where you're trying to do everything on your own. Like you're just burning the midnight oil. You're exhausted. Like, I mean, we all start somewhere, right? Like you and I did, right? This is where you're trying to, you're doing lunches. You're trying to go out and get business. You're also working with clients. You're doing the billing. You are the intake, right? Like it's everybody's calling your phone. Doesn't matter if you're in court. It doesn't matter if, wherever you are. And it's like, well, how do you get out of that? And I think the first step of getting out of that chaos, and this is where firms, I believe, start to go from 6 to 7 figures, is one is in the brand and the positioning, but the other big factor I really think is in the team, right? It's just asking for help. It could be an executive assistant. It could be just a paralegal. It could be just someone that can give you more capacity back so that you can continue to grow the firm, because there's nothing worse than somebody who's working 100 hours a week. And I'm sure you can relate to this. It's like stressed out and exhausted and believes they need more leads and cases, right? Like that would do absolutely nothing for them besides probably drive them, closer towards the grave. So like the first step is like, okay, I need to expand my capacity. I need help, right? Then you're at the 7-figure mark. And then there's firms that stay at 7 figures for a long time, of like just up to, from $1 million all the way up to almost 10 million, right? And what is the reason most firms stay there? You may have a few people at that point, like a few team members. And like now it's just the complexity of it all. It's really just the fact that, when it's just you or it's you and like, 2 or 3 people, the lines of communication are pretty clear. There's just not many ways in which that gets complex. But what happens when you have like 20 people, 30 people, 40 people? Now you've got to figure out a way to get people from all these different backgrounds and personality styles to align and work together. And this is where culture starts to play a big role. This also comes down to like, how do you start really to scale like what it is that you're doing? Because, before maybe you were taking on 5-10 cases a month, but how do you scale to 100, right? It's completely different structure and infrastructure. You start to get into process, you start to get into overall like efficiency and data and metrics and KPIs. So this is where I believe it actually starts to become a real business, right? Like the 7 to 8 figures. And then you get to 8. And this to me is like the biggest danger zone that ever exists. And I know countless firm owners that like when they reach out, they were here and they've been here a long time. And whether it's at 15 million, 25 million, 30 million, like this is what I'm about to share may be completely unrelatable to some people listening. And to those that it is relatable, they'll just be nodding their heads, is that this is the part where you get comfortable because life's pretty good. I mean, who could blame you? You're running a $25 million law firm. You got a team in place. And is it perfect? No, but you worked your ass off for the last maybe 2 decades to get it here, and you want to relax and you want to enjoy time with your family and you're just thinking, okay, well, kind of lose that fire in some respects. It's like it's the comfort zone. So the thing that if you look at 6 to 7 figures, that's chaos. You overcome that by asking for help, bringing in some people to just essentially free you up so you can focus on your strengths. And then from 7 to 8 figures, that's more around complexity. How do you simplify it? That's with like systems, KPIs, rig focus on culture, bringing in like more leaders, mid-level managers. But then 8 to 9 figures, like how do you get out of that comfort zone? Like how do you really blow past just, let's say you're 30 million, 40 million, and you're like, we've been here for 3, 4, 5 years. We just can't seem to break out of it. Is the solution more marketing? Is the solution like what is it? And I'm telling you, this is the hardest one to do it. Like you think the other 2 are difficult, but I've seen this time and time again. The only way out of this of 8 to 9 figures is to intentionally make yourself uncomfortable, make everyone around you uncomfortable, and blow the whole thing up like it's day one and rebuild it from like what it needs to be for a 9-figure organization. And the reason that's so hard to do is because everything is good, right? It's not great. It's not like your ideal state, but it's not when you were starting out and you could barely put food on the table and you're just worried about how we're going to make payroll. So you think, am I going to bust up a good thing and put myself through all this and my team through this? And it just seems stressful and exhausting. So you got to be a true psychopath, I think, to go from 8 to 9 figures. That's why I think so to put it in perspective, less than 1% of all small businesses in America ever get to 7 figures, and less than 0.01% get to 8 figures. And then when it comes to 9 figures, it's like 0.00001%. That's wow. Small business. That's not even just talking about law firms. That's like all small businesses in America.
Wild. I got, for me personally, the pain line for me, taking some Dan Martell here, was like 8 to 10. 8 to 10 was really hard for me because what I found was like, I had to hire a lot of non-revenue generating people that I was resistant to, HR, middle managers, finance, to get that data component. So actually,
you say 8 to 10 million, not 8 to 10 figures.
8 to 10 million. Yes. Yeah. For me. And then from 10 to 20, once you had those, it's like you got the infrastructure. I think now I'm going to sound like a huge nerd, like, and I would kind of love your feedback here because like your steps ahead of the game for me. I feel like I'm just playing people Pokemon. Like that's what I feel like I'm playing. It's like, oh, I need better Facebook ads. Who's the best at Facebook ads? Oh, I need better this. Who's the best? And it's like that's what I feel like I'm doing. It's like I got to catch them all. I've got to catch all the talent. Like, am I wrong? Is it like
that's what it is. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. They were higher up at Rippling, the HRIS company, and these guys have been on like an insane growth rate, right? Like just they do like payroll, HR, etc. Like multi-1,000% growth rate. They're on their way to like a massive IPO. They've already got a multi-billion-dollar valuation. And I was talking to this guy who's like one of the execs there. That's all they focus on. They're like, how do we get the best and brightest in here? And just that's where all the growth happens. That's where all the scale happens. Cause it's less about, hey, where do we find enough just capacity hires, right? So we could just do more work and take on more clients and customers. It's more so around like, where do we find these people that have already done what we're trying to do? And how do we get them into our own organization? To me, in terms of like founder focus, especially you're scaling from like 8 to 9 figures, that's where in some ways I think like 80 to 90% of your time goes. How do I get this human being like to want to come over here and like who's incredibly talented, right? That could take their talents anywhere, right? Like they'd be desired anywhere. Like they're going to be well compensated anywhere. Like they're the top of the top. It's like for lawyers that we last week we had a workshop. There was a firm that's about 120 million in revenue. He was saying the same thing. Like they go out and they try to find the top trial lawyers, like because everybody wants them. The lengths that they go through to find these trial lawyers and to attract them to their firm, because top trial lawyers can go anywhere, right? Like everybody wants them, right? They're going to be well compensated everywhere. It's like, so you're not going to win them over with more money or better benefits. It's them believing in you and your vision. And sometimes they're nurturing these guys for years, just trying to get them over. So,
it's crazy. I want to stick on just for a brief moment, because I think it's so important what you're hitting on. Literally yesterday, I fired off a text to Mike Rose at Hatch Rose, Steve Gersten, Bob Simon, some heavy, like legit trial attorneys. And I'm like, and I was asking them about their compensation structure for trial attorneys. And like, my question is like, to me, the pre-lit side of the game, I'm not saying you can't get an early step in it and like maybe get some AI and maybe some automation and like maybe some nearshoring and get some margin there. To me, the game is going to be who's got the trial attorneys. What's the strategy around finding them, retaining them, paying them correctly? To me, like that's the game, at least for PI.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it's like a rare commodity. It's like, yes, there's 8 billion people out there, but to find the cream of the crop, like trial attorneys, because again, if you get a great one, your confidence is massive because number one, like there's, that's one less thing you have to worry about because you know that they're going to do a phenomenal job when they go to court. So for somebody who's trying to get out of of going to the courtroom, that's the solution. And then for somebody who wants to build up an amazing trial team, that's the way they scale their firm, because now instead of having to refer out these cases, like now these cases can be referred actually to them, and then they can maximize the value of said cases. Then these trial lawyers also can, they build their own brands, right? Which helps the firm as well. And then they start speaking at conferences. So yeah.
Like these pre-lit shops aren't getting referrals, like legit referrals. I mean, they just aren't. I mean, everybody knows what's behind the scenes. Let's move on to this. That was a great convo. I'm going to like bookmark that and come back to that one. The OTT, CTV, the streaming stack, so legal marketing is evolving, right? AI. Attention is fragmented. Crisp has been on the forefront of this, first with social stack. Now you got the streaming stack. So, top level, just tell me about streaming stack.
Yeah.
And in this position.
Yeah. So this all came about really in 2017, 2018. The whole reason we exist is to help the best cases go to the best attorneys, because the unfortunate truth is the best cases go to the best marketers. And when we got our start, it was helping, small firms, solo attorneys compete against these big players where they couldn't basically compete resource-wise. Like they couldn't do TV commercials and radio and billboards. So how do you get found and how do you get known? And social media at the time was a much lower barrier to entry, but there was a lot of attention there. There's a lot of eyeballs like Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. And there's an amazing way to just build your brand by, placing content, running ads, like the little 6-second YouTube bumper ads that play before a video plays. And now it's, anytime you pull up Facebook, you're getting hit with videos and video ads, right? So you can build great brands. But the thing that was always out of reach is TV. And people would say, okay, well, people are cutting the cord. And they'd be right, because over 90% of households today are smart TVs, or connected TV, meaning that whether it's your native TV or a Chromecast or a Roku or an Apple TV or something that you're using to access, a streaming network in some way, like Hulu, a Netflix, YouTube TV, something like that, right? So, and people are still consuming that content. So that's where streaming stack came in, from the standpoint of instead of running traditional TV commercials, which are generally very expensive, you're competing for airtime, you don't have the same, for one, the completion rate's very low. I think it's less than 20% when you have traditional TV commercials, because usually what happens is that if it's pre-recorded, like DVR'd, people just skip the commercials. And if they're watching them live, they'll just change the channel, right? But on streaming, it's almost 100% completion rate, because even if you change the channel, the ad follows you, right? You cannot go to the next thing until the ad completes. So in some ways they're unskippable. And then the actual video ads on streaming are a fraction of the cost of traditional. And we're talking major networks. If you want to run ads on when Yellowstone is playing, if you want to be on major ABC, CBS, CNN, Fox News, etc. And the thing that I actually think is most interesting, most people are not watching live TV anymore, except for live sports. So the ability to run your commercials on live sports, right now we've got the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs. Before we had the Masters, and then you got college football. And to be able to do so for less than 20 cents a view and have it tracked is amazing. So basically the whole dynamic that happens here is that, especially if you combine the social and the streaming, so anybody who visits your website, now you can actually show up on the biggest screen of their house, in their house while they're watching a show, Survivor or whatever. Now, because they visited your website, they can see a streaming ad. But then even people that, let's say, see streaming ads on their TV or tablet, or wherever they're accessing that, they now can get hit with ads across the internet, right? So everything works in tandem. And the ultimate goal of this is that for a prospective client, wherever they are, right? They're at the gym. This happened recently at one of our firms. It was they were working out Orange Theory, and then they saw their commercial come on. People were oh, wow. How did you get on ESPN, right? And it just creates this amazing social proof. And they're oh yeah, that was 7 cents. But it comes on there, and then when somebody's later at their computer, they're seeing ads there, right? And then they pull out their phone, they're they're browsing Reddit, or they're on YouTube, they're seeing ads there, and even just banner ads and retargeting ads. And then they finally sit home with their spouse. They've had a long day, man. You've been banging them out on on their computer, when they were at the gym, on their phone, and they're all right, man, I'm finally ready to relax. They throw on Yellowstone, and bang, man, you hit them again. Right. And
that's incredible.
So it's just combining the two. What I really like right now about streaming and OTT is it's in many ways what social ads were, I feel 8 or 9 years ago. So pre Cambridge Analytica, where social ads, you used to be able to do a lot more targeting options. And then
that cookie,
they're removing the name of data privacy. They're there's certain things you can't target anymore. Not true in streaming, right? You get all sorts of demographic data. You could target people that are everything from household income to business owners to those that are a part of motorcycle clubs that have XYZ type of insurance. You can get very, very, very granular with this, just because a lot of the data companies, they still sell, to the streaming services.
Right.
So if you can combine it all, it's a very powerful combination. And my prediction, just as we saw with social, is that a lot of the large traditional advertisers are going to look at this and say, look, I'm going to get a lot more bang for my buck, not to mention it's trackable, not to mention you could pull it in, ties in with the Google Analytics. So you could actually see, okay, who was it that watched one of our streaming ads on the streaming networks that then visited our website. So we have verified visits, right? Of just attributing to those that watch streaming.
All right. So let me put the hat on, right? You hit this a little bit, right?
Yeah.
The targeting component. So what I see, I know YouTube and some of the small device is like, you can track that. What about the large device viewing? TV, you see that brand increase. Maybe you throw a vanity phone number. I don't know. Some people are trying to throw the QR code up. But like, look, you really can't track that either. So like, what do you say to those individuals? Like, you know as well as I do that, first of all, user behavior, they might go to YouTube TV and then they may go to Google. Then they may see the billboard. Like, what's your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point. I would say if your goal is leads, you're going to be probably very disappointed. This would be not a reason to do this, right? Like if your goal is leads, I say, hey, do Google pay-per-click, do LSAs. Like that's going to be very predictable for you. Buy leads from lead services, which are going to be junk. But like if that's what you want, that's what you'll get. I would treat this as like online billboards in many ways, right? Like it would the same way like you have hundreds of billboards, but now you can have this on social and on streaming, and that effect is hugely impactful. And you don't even need to bother with like a vanity phone number or anything like that. I mean, the benefit on streaming is you can literally click the ad, right? Like from your device. And I would look at streaming as not just the TV, but also tablets. And when people are like, this actually blew my mind. Like years ago when we were first investigating this, I thought, look, I pay for like the YouTube premium because I have young kids and I don't want to run ads. And then I've got YouTube TV. Are people really seeing ads? And I learned that like 90% of households, they get the free versions, right? Like they get the ad supported version. And it's same thing with like Fubo, right? Like, or Freebie, like all of those networks.
I'm in that category. And then I'm like a different nutcase though. I like to watch the ads because I'm a marketer.
Yeah. So they're like, so you don't have to worry about the ads being served. But yeah, I mean, to your point, so the tracking when the streaming is like IP based, right? So like you've got like the device like IMEI, right? Like if you want to get like technical about it in terms of like attributing it to a specific household, and then the actual IP itself. So like when you're targeting specific households, and then on social there is like you still have some of the cookies, but we look at it as like we build audiences based on intent. So if you ask like let's say a personal injury lawyer and they're like, who do you want to target? And they're like injured people. Like who's your ideal client? Injured people, which is like such a terrible answer, by the way, because if you could just get a little more granular with it and say, you know what, if I look through our client base, our best clients have been moms, right? And like they're moms with kids, or like they are part of like neighborhood associations or whatever, or their husbands are construction workers or just something, some trend you can identify. Because if you can say moms, like boom, like you could cut out 50% of the wasted spend right there, but you don't have to target men. So you could narrow it. But then the other thing is when we say intent-based targeting, is let's say you do narrow this population and you're running content to them, and let's say it's about your personal injury firm. So somebody who generally just isn't going to watch more than 3 or 5 seconds of that isn't high intent, and you wouldn't want to continue to serve up more ads to them versus somebody who watches 30 seconds or a minute or 2 minutes. Like it would make sense to show them more of that stuff. So you could build audiences that way too. But I would say if nothing else, like at the absolute lowest hanging fruit, just set up the retargeting ads. Like just the people who visit your website, retarget them on social, retarget them on streaming. They've already found you. Like just continue to get your message in front of them, and you can target that exact audience, and you don't have to even go broad.
Love that. I'm going to do one quick hitter because I don't want to stick out. I want to move to the next category. I've heard this and I genuinely don't know. I've heard geofencing violates HIPAA, but I don't know. Like I even asked ChatGPT legit this question before, and they're like, you get in the danger zone if your ads assume diagnosis, like cancer at an oncology clinic. So for the auto guys, like that's not violating HIPAA, right? If you're hitting a hospital or like, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, look, I want to give you a straight answer. How would they prove it? Like so I'll give you an example. Let's say you did do the geofencing and you set up ads to run around a certain chiropractic clinics, hospitals or whatever, right? But let's say you didn't do that and you just say, hey, we're targeting this audience in Miami, Florida. And it just so happened the person was sitting at the hospital and they saw the ad anyway, right? Because they had their phone out. So how could you prove that it was even geofenced, right? So I don't know that it violates HIPAA anyway, first and foremost, right? But regardless, this is the kind of the whole idea around like this ABSs and lead gen marketing, because someone would say, hey, I know in Arizona, they remove Rule 5.4, so they allow non-lawyer firm ownership, but I'm in Texas, so that's not going to bother me. And then you say, okay, well, guess what? Then you get the lead gen companies that are venture backed, right? And they can run ads all over America. So when they're running ads in Texas and they're getting leads, right? Those leads that would otherwise have gone to you are the lawyers in Texas, but they get the leads and sell them back to you. And then the real, like, this is the thing that's going to get me, like, Michael Mogill would never kill himself. So just like if this shows up, in the papers, just know that I said it on your podcast, Chris. But Then there's the next layer of corruption that you and I know about, of like private equity says, hey, I know we were selling these leads to these lawyers in all these different markets across the country, but we can generate more alpha, right? Like, what if we fee share in the cases themselves, right? And someone will say, oh, you're not supposed to do that because you're there in Arizona and you're in Texas or New York or Florida or wherever. And it's like, there are ways, right? And they're doing
They'll
it all.
Bleed it out in the marketing consultant agreement. We've heard it. They did that in dental too. Sticking on that, lead gen versus brand building, long-term, short-term, like what's your thoughts on this?
So my thought is, it comes down to, do you want to win small today or win big tomorrow? Meaning that there's a place for both. Like if you're just getting started and you don't have any cases, you say, okay, maybe I want to invest in, pay-per-click, LSAs. There's a lot of firms, even larger firms, that still do it. The challenge is that the cost of acquisition continues to rise. It's continuously more expensive. It used to be $1,000 soft tissue auto accident case, like on demand. And now in some markets, particularly on the West Coast and California, it's as high as like $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a case. You look at that and you say, okay, well, if that's what I'm paying to acquire a case, then what's really my margin on this case? And then I'm going to need a lot of them, right? Because it's the only way you can work is off volume. And then you just don't have a lot to reinvest back into the firm. It's not as profitable. And then just the cycle repeats. And every year it gets more expensive. Like, this, right? It's more expensive this year than it was last year, than it was 5 years ago. So it's a strategy that doesn't, I believe, have a lot of long-term merit, as opposed to brand building is all about tomorrow, is all about the future. Like we were talking about, trial lawyers, the best cases. You ask any law firm in America, you say, hey, who do your best cases come from? And they'll say referral and word of mouth, right? And it's like, okay, well, how does that happen, right? And it's because you have built a brand. Like, people know of you, your clients, they stay top of mind. Like other lawyers, like you're top of mind to them, and you're just known in the community that way. So I look at lead generation, or like buying leads, as just demand capture. Like who in the market today is looking for a personal injury lawyer? Like Personal Injury Houston, let's bid for clicks, because everybody else, you're competing against like Thomas J. Henry and like everybody else. In the off chance that they click your ad, maybe you have a chance where they'll submit a form and maybe you'll get a lead, and maybe that lead will turn into a case, right? As opposed to, what about everybody else who may not need a lawyer today, but may need one in the future, or may have a friend who needs a lawyer? It's like a much larger market size, and you don't have to compete the same way that everybody else is competing. So if I'm a smaller firm, a mid-sized firm, like whether I'm at 7 figures or 8 figures, honestly, even 9, I look at it and say, I don't want to compete against John Morgan. Right? Like John's going to spend over $200 million in marketing. Like, and if I got to compete pay-per-click with John, he's going to outspend me every single time. Right? So what do? And it's, okay, I'm going to focus on building brand. I've never once talked to someone who has invested years in building brand that looks back and says, I wish I would have started later, or I wish I wouldn't have done that. Well, usually what happens is they'll say, look, our practice is a fucking mess, and we do so many things wrong, and it's just an absolute disaster. But the brand saves our ass all day long, and we get cases. We're doing 50 million this year because people know us. I'm not saying that the former should be the case. I'm just saying that brand is so good that even when everything else is dysfunctional, the firm can still be financially successful.
If I could ring the bell or shoot rockets for a little sound effects, I would, because I 1,000% agree. It opens you up to opportunities from a messaging perspective too, I think, and a creativity perspective to stand out. Your direct response stuff is first of all, when you're looking at Google Ads, you don't have a lot of copy in the ad. There's not imagery, and your direct response are all super punchy, like call now, get us now. And it's you got a limited window of time, versus the brand. I think the one thing that I love about it is you can tell a story, and I think the key thing that I took from that is you're not appealing to just the injured. You're appealing to the people that aren't injured, but then create an emotional tie and connection and know you, right? With story, with emotion. So I agree wholeheartely. And look, I see it. We're in the CRMs, the people that are changing media, that now they're LSA, in the early days, those low leads and Google Ads, but now everybody's jumping in there. Well, now the cost to acquire is way higher. It just is.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm not saying don't do those things. I would just say that there's a healthy split where when you're looking at your long-term investment, like today, we're probably 80% brand, right? And it much more focused on demand creation than demand capture. But early on, I get it. The phone's got to ring. like you got to bring in cases. So maybe you do invest in like pay-per-click LSAs, those types of things in the short term. The challenge is that the minute you stop spending is the minute those stop coming in, right? Like you literally disappear off the face of the earth. And that's a tough place to be because you don't know what the future cost will be.
Mike, I got like a few final questions for you. One of them I'm going to pick. So I occasionally check into the old Game Changing Attorney podcast. My favorite are the AMMAs, the Ask Michael Mogill Anything. And the one that I think you get a lot of attention for is the habits, the rituals, right? Because it's consistency over years, right? Day in, day out, consistency. What's a day in the life of Michael Mogill? Today you're texting me from the sauna. Give me the rituals, the habits.
Yeah. So I start the morning off in the most miserable way imaginable. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, I go outside in pitch darkness in my underwear and I get in a tub of freezing cold water. That was the cold plunge. I dread it every morning. Like it is just because like, okay, that's the last thing you want to do. You just woke up and who wants to get in a tub of water that's 37 degrees, right? And then you get out and I'm like, okay, all right, I'm proud of myself. I did something hard. And that's where I strap on a weighted vest. And I'm a professional walker now, Chris. So years ago, when I had my health scare, I was averaging like 3,000 steps a day because I was just spending most of the day sitting. And my trainer said, hey, man, you should really try to get 10,000 steps a day. And I was like, all right, challenge accepted. I'm going to go for 20,000 steps a day, right? Because you said 10,000, like I can't do things in moderation. So I think, okay, how do I do this? Now, walking outside at 5 o'clock in the morning in pitch darkness is probably not the best idea. So I do it indoors. I've got like this Peloton tread. And then I realized like a few days in, I was like, man, this is going to be boring, man. I'm going to be like staring at a wall, like walking 5 miles with the weighted vest. So I got this standing desk attachment to this thing. And I grew up playing video games. So I was like, you know what? Like this can make the time go by faster and I can be like just mentally stimulated doing this. So I'm playing these first person shooters like Call of Duty in the morning, 5 a.m. Usually I try to get like 5 or 6 miles while I'm walking with this weighted vest. And I'm playing against, who knows what? At that time, it's like everyone across the world. It's a lot of it. It's like college kids and like high school kids. And I got super competitive with it, right? So I was like, all right, like I want to get good here, right? Because I'm ancient by Call of Duty standards. My age, like 39 years old. Like
you got the mic, kids, like got you, sucker, at 7 a.m.
So that's what I was leaning towards. So I got super competitive, man, and like I started like climbing up the rank ladder and like the competitive play, and then like you're gonna laugh, man. I got a coach, right? Like I was like, I got a business coach. Why wouldn't I have like, if I want to get serious about this, and my wife would just be like, she's like, all right, man, whatever brings you joy. So this morning I'm playing. And I got these squad mates, right? Like we only know each other from the internet, right? Like they ask what I do, and I say like I'm an accountant, just so they don't ask me any more questions about what I do. But we smash this team, like just destroy them. Like it's like 4v4, and then I will go on like and I'll talk a little smack, and my smack talk goes like this. It's basically like, look, you guys just got slammed, and they're like, put salt in the wound. Just want to let you know, I'm a 39-year-old walking on a treadmill right now while I did this, right? So, and it's just like they're like, what? Like I think that's like a pattern interrupt. They just can't even believe you did this while walking on a treadmill. So I've fallen off a few times, but you get used to it. So that that's how it begins. Then I'll get a workout in, and then I wake up my kids, and get them ready for school, like take them to school, and then if there's time, I'll jump in front of jump in the sauna, do a little like the red light panels, like red light therapy, and then it's to the office, and from there the battle begins. Like every day is a new adventure. Like I talk to some people in other businesses, and they're like, man, I'm just so bored. I personally can't remember the last time I was bored. You don't know what the day will bring, right? And a lot of it right now is either recruiting or like working with our leaders or any sort of like training and coaching and development, that sort of thing, or like podcasts, like the thought leadership stuff. And then as the day wraps up, usually around like 6:30 or so, I come home, we got to put the kids to bed. We do bedtime, bath time, reading, like that. That's a lot of fun. And we get done around like, let's say 7:30. And then Chris, I have the golden hour, man. My wife and I, from 7:30 to about 8:30, maybe. We have an hour to ourselves, and we will like right now we're watching Landman, right? And then listen, man, I'm the most boring.
Oh yeah, that first episode was killer.
It's fantastic. Yeah. But then
that's the only one I've seen so far. No spoilers.
We go upstairs, we go to bed, man, and I'm in bed by 9 o'clock. Start over again, right? Like it's not I wouldn't say it's like the most exciting life. People say, what's the secret to waking up at 5 a.m.? And I say, it's going to bed at 9 p.m.
Love it. Love it. You've interviewed hundreds of leaders, Seth Godin, big name, you had Arnold, you've interviewed Nick Saban. What's the piece of advice you've heard like consistently that really sticks with you, like that leaders have said?
Yeah, I forget who said this, was like, leadership is hard. Like I honestly, in some ways, like I had this conversation with our leaders last week, when we do our leadership meeting, and I said, I don't know why anyone would want to be a leader, like want to be a leader, like me. And they'd be like, what? And I said, well, it's because it's one of the most like thankless roles that you can be in. And it is just constant pain and suffering, like it can be, right? Because you are solving all the problems and all the most difficult problems that find their way to you. Essentially, if somebody else could have solved it, it would have made its way to you. And then you couple that, let's say you're CEO, the problems you're solving are all the problems that all the leaders couldn't solve that find their way to you. So like every day you come in and it's like, what are the most painful, difficult problems imaginable? And now they're your problem. So that can wear you down over time. And business is like not a marathon, not a sprint. It's like a marathon sprint, right? Like you're sprinting and you're sprinting for a marathon. So the advice that I've heard that's been helpful to me, especially when you get down on yourself and you're dealing with a lot of adversity and you're just getting kicked in the nuts every day, right? Like you just, you have these days where it's like 5 things in a row, right? And then you're like, okay, tomorrow's going to be a new day. And then you get kicked in the nuts 6 times that day. And you're like, all right, I'm going to keep going here, right? And it's just realizing that you can't be depressed and sad and grateful at the same time. So if you ever find yourself in that state, I just start writing down things I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my kids; they're healthy. X, Y, and Z. Like I'm grateful for our clients. I'm grateful for like the opportunity to be able to like dream big and like do big things. I'm grateful to be in the arena, right? And then just gets you out of that like mental space of, man, like I'm such a victim. Like this sucks. This is gonna sound immature, and I gotta send you this meme. But you can't spell millions without a couple L's. So you gotta take those L's with you, man. Like it's just, I don't know anyone who's achieved any level of success and has not just been through the ringer. And that's why I think a lot of like law firm owners and leaders, like we can connect with each other. It's almost like we're like battle tested veterans. Like we've been to war and back, and it's like, look, I know that if you built the business that you have to the point you built it, you've been through some shit. And even at the fact that, let's say you've just been doing it for 20 years, right? Like I admired, like we had a plumber come over to our house and I was talking to this dude. I'm like, hey man, how long you been doing this? And he built like a business, like a few $1 million, just him and his kids. And he's like, he's been at it for 25 years. And I'm like, man, I respect that. You've just 25 years of this. I'm sure there's been ups and downs and like, just, wow. Like I admire that. Just
was that plumber wearing like gold chains nowadays?
I mean, it's funny because like when I reached out to the plumbing company, he like answers the phone. Like I can hear his kids in the background, right?
Yeah.
And then he later called me the other day. He's like, oh yeah, we got to process the payment. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, can you like send an invoice or like, I'll just pay it. And he's like, no, I got to take the card over the phone, right? I'm like, all right. And I'm like, okay, well, it's like 7:00. I'm sure it's, you're probably having dinner. He's like, no, it's all good. He gets up from the dinner table, takes the card. It's awesome.
Amazing. Mike, this has been so fun. Thanks for coming on the show.
Of course, man. My pleasure. You've been listening to the Game Changing Attorney Podcast with me, Michael Mogill. If you found this episode valuable, here are 3 free ways that I can help you grow your law firm. Number 1, download the first chapter of my book absolutely free at GameChangingAttorney.com. Number 2, you can shoot me a text at 404-531-7691 and I'll answer any question that you've got for me. And finally, number 3, if you can leave this podcast a 5-star review, it'll help us gain access to more influential thought leaders and bring their lessons learned here to you. For more information on this episode, see the show notes in your podcast app or visit legalpodcast.com.